Okay, well, we can go ahead and get started. So, thank you everyone for joining us for this month's Science Cafe. I just want to take a minute to talk about the CTSC for those of you who are not familiar. Our goal is to provide or to improve the health of people who live in Northern Ohio by providing resources and services to our hospital and university partners, clinical and translational researchers and scientists, as well as community members. And the CTSC is currently doing this by focusing on these five key areas and initiatives. So, resources and services, workforce development, community engagement, clinical and translational funding opportunities, as well as health informatics. And I wanted to introduce our speaker for today, Dr. Umut Gurkan. He's a Wilbur Austin Professor of Engineering in the Department of Mechanical and Aerospace Engineering at the Case School of Engineering. He's the Chief Scientist in Microfabrication at Chemix Health, as well as the Director of Technology at BioChip Labs. Dr. Gurkan also serves as the co-director of the Translational Fellows Program. Dr. Gurkan's work is an exemplary example of translational research. So, one of his most notable achievements is the creation of the lab on a chip device that tests for sickle cell disease just using a single drop of blood. So, this allows for the portability of the test, bringing it all over the world, such as remote and underserved parts of Africa and India. And so, today, Dr. Gurkan will be talking about commercialization and impact.
Thank you, Mackenzie, for the invitation, and thank you all for being here. People are still joining, so I would like to just take a few minutes to give you an overview of what I'm going to talk about, and then we have some questions that we would like you to answer. Do we call them survey questions, Mackenzie?
Poll questions.
Poll questions, yes, poll questions on a few concepts that I'm going to talk about. Just really basics. We would like to have a sense of what the audience has had in terms of intellectual property and invention and etc. related areas. Um, so I also would like to uh, say that in at the CTSC we are interested in translational activities, but one of the new areas of focus is commercialization, entrepreneurship, and in this presentation I will also go over some of the existing opportunities through the CTSC as well as at the university, at Case Western Reserve University, that can help you learn more about translation, commercialization, entrepreneurship. And this session is meant to be interactive. I encourage you to raise your hand if you have any questions. You can type in the chat. I have some slides that I want to cover, but I don't have to finish all of them. I would like to uh, engage with you as much as I can. If you feel comfortable turning on your cameras, speak up if you have questions or comments. I would really appreciate that. Um, so feel free to do that if you feel comfortable. And so I will take a few minutes to go over a few introductory slides, and then we will do the poll. And I would like to discuss the poll results real time with you, and then I'll continue with the rest of the material. So today I would like to talk about how commercialization and innovation can work in an academic setting, and how ecosystems such as the CTSC that we have here, which is an NIH-supported large translational research and science center, can help you if you are interested in translation, if you are interested in learning more about commercialization and innovation, or if you think that you are at that stage, there are many resources available here locally at the university and also in the city of Cleveland as well as in the state of Ohio that can help you in those processes. So before I start, I would like to share some of my conflicts of interests. As Mackenzie mentioned, I have roles at companies that we have started over the years. This is a summary of, and I'm required to disclose. By the way, if you have translational commercialization activities, all the activities, all these potentially financially conflicting activities are reviewed by a conflict of interest committee at the university. And we have such a committee at the university, and they make sure that all the existing projects, all the other teaching, service, research activities of such people are managed and monitored properly, considering all these conflicts of interests. So, for example, in this case, I regularly every year and with the acquisition of every single project I update my conflicts of interest disclosures, and these are the things that I talk about. I say that, for example, I have company roles, I have these roles at these companies, I have these uh, interactions or collaborations with other companies and so on. So the first company, which I will mostly talk about today, is Himex Health, and the product is Gazelle HB variant technology. So this is a microchip electrophoresis-based hemoglobin testing method, which is now commercially available in more than 40 countries. It has been used to test millions of people already in the most remote areas in the world. Currently, we are working on obtaining US FDA approval. We just received US FDA breakthrough device designation for this technology, and we are expecting an FDA approval soon, hopefully this year, as early as this year, and then it will also become available for clinical use in the United States. The other company is Biochip Labs. It's a high complexity assay in vitro diagnostic company, and this Biochip Labs is located here in Cleveland, and it is located actually in an incubator space, a Global Cardiovascular Innovation Center (GCIC) on Cleveland Clinic campus. And this company provides the next generation blood tests for emerging targeted and cell and gene-based therapies, especially in the sickle cell space, but it also has applications in other blood disorder areas as well. Another company that I'm involved with is Exatec ClotChip. So this is a point of care assay for blood coagulation assessment. So this is a technology that can tell if your blood is coagulating, clotting properly or not. It's currently in clinical trials for as a companion diagnostic for direct oral anticoagulants, DOACs, if you have heard this about this term. Some other Another company that I was involved with before coming to Case during my postdoc years is DX now. So this is an IVF microfluidic device for IVF. It's a high quality sperm sorting technology. This is FDA approved, and it's now used in most of the IVF clinics in the United States as well as outside United States. Through my research via the companies or my academic lab, I have worked with the pharmaceutical companies that you see on the right-hand side, and I have received contracts or research projects with them, and we have some ongoing research projects, and I'm also in advisory boards for some of these companies. So this is standard practice. I'm just doing this portion, conflict of interest disclosure portion, because this is one of the things that you would need to do if you have any commercialization entrepreneurship activities as part of your academic professional career. So now what I would like to do is, before any of these companies start, before anything commercially or translationally, uh, before any translational activity that takes place that might lead to a commercial product or a company, the first starting point is an invention or intellectual property or patent. It has different, these concepts have different names and they refer to slightly different things, but that's where everything starts. So if you don't have a discovery or innovation, then there is nothing that you can commercialize in a broad sense. But if you have an invention or a discovery, then you need to protect it. And I can explain you why it is important to make sure that you have intellectual property protection through patenting. Um, I'm not an expert in patent law, so we have experts. Our university and our institutions work with legal counsel and experts in patent law. But from a researcher perspective, it's extremely important to be aware of the process. The first step is an invention disclosure for a potential discovery or invention that you have made. Now, Mackenzie, can we ask these questions and see where we are in terms of our understanding of these concepts that I'm going to talk about? Yes, the first question is IP. Do you know what intellectual property is? You can say yes or no if you have heard about it. And okay, answers are coming in. Do Who sees the results, Mackenzie? Is it just me or does everyone else see the results?
When I end the poll, then it will show the
Okay.
results.
Okay. So we have a few more minutes, a few more seconds. Okay, excellent. It looks now everybody sees the results, right? So most people know 70, I think 9 out of 11 people who responded know what intellectual property is. Is someone willing to describe what intellectual property is? You may unmute yourself and just say what you think it is, if you don't mind. Anyone? Don't be shy, just say
I
whatever it is.
can I
Yes.
can talk. So in terms of intellectual property, what you're protecting is typically an exclusionary right. So it's
Mhm.
a new concept idea that's going to be something new, useful, and then you need to be able to like disclose it and describe it. And then you're basically saying, I came up with this idea, I'm disclosing it to the US Patent Office, but in exchange for publishing that, then nobody else can use this exact process or produce this exact product for the next 20 years from when I first disclose it
Yes,
from a patent perspective.
very nice description. A few very important points here. You should be able to describe it in detail so that it can be reproduced. So if you, for example, disclose something that no one else can do other than you, or if you have a concept, like an imaginary concept for making something new, but if you are not able to describe it in that would allow reproduction by another person, then it's not considered an invention, a proper invention disclosure. It should be reproducible. So you essentially disclose all the details of this new procedure or of this new technology or of this new test or drug, whatever that is. But then in return, you get a protection for 20 years that is given to you by the US government, essentially. Uh, Only you can benefit from it commercially. So other people can still use this concept for non-commercial purposes. For example, if you are an academic lab and if you are running this test in your academic lab for research and development, there is allowance for that. But if you cannot benefit from commercial, no one else can benefit from it commercially other than the people who disclosed it and as part of an invention disclosure. So one suggestion that I have for everyone on this, everyone who's listening here is, if you think you have something new that you have invented, it can be anything. Like it can be a new way to measure something, or it can be a new way to treat something, or it can be a new way to modify a certain cell or a certain biological process. If you think you have some invention, typically, if you have something publishable, if you can publish in a journal, in a peer-reviewed journal, it's something new, then there is a chance that what you have disclosed or what you have discovered or invented is something novel and new. So it would qualify potentially as an invention disclosure. You don't have to figure this out yourself. The expectation from you as an investigator is you fill out a form called invention disclosure form. You attach what you think is an invention. It can be a draft of a paper, it can be a submitted paper, it can be some document that you put together, it can also be a few pages long, presentation, or anything. So you can submit this invention disclosure to your respective tech transfer office. So every institution have a technology transfer office. I encourage you to search online or ask and find the contact information for your tech transfer office. And if you can fill out this form, which they can provide you. It's just a one-page form. You write down the inventors, when you think the invention happened, was there any federal support, federal funding that supported this invention, and etc. And you file it, and someone at the tech transfer office reviews this document and would get back to you with extra questions or maybe for additional clarifications. And if they think that it is worth protecting, then they will file a provisional patent application. So provisional patent application is a placeholder patent application that gives you 1 year from the date of provisional patent application to prepare a stronger, more comprehensive full patent application. But if you don't do the full provisional patent application, then you are risking that during that 1 year of period time until you get ready for a full patent application, someone else might file a provisional patent application which can predate you. So about in terms of inventions and invention disclosures, the timing and the date of invention is very important. So as soon as you think that you have something protectable, I encourage you to disclose it to your tech transfer office immediately. So let's go to the next question. Do you know what invention disclosure is? I already described it, but have you ever, maybe you can also say if you have done any invention disclosures, you can say yes. If no, then say no. Okay, it's looking half and half, roughly, not right now. Okay. So the answers, like the results are in, it's more people said no. So we most people don't know what invention disclosure is. I actually already described it, but it's a form, it's a document that you submit to your technology transfer office that tells them that you think that you have some potentially a new invention. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be like fully complete. I have seen people, for example, waiting for months or years to put together a proper invention disclosure in their own minds. But as soon as you think you have something, I encourage you to disclose it. There are experts at the tech transfer office who will help you with that, with the next steps. Okay, and next, let's do the next question. Do you know who to talk to at your institution if you think you have an invention? Okay, let's wait a few more minutes. So most people said yes. So I would like to ask someone to volunteer and tell us who would they talk to? Do you have a specific person in mind, or do you know the office? Please let us know. Yes,
Hi, this is Ali Sayed. So I'm using Ashin's account. So yeah,
it's okay.
so yes. So I think you have already mentioned. So we have to talk to TTO. That's the Technology Transfer Office, where
Yes,
I'm in talks with one person by name Taylor. Taylor is the person that I'm discussing currently with one of the potential inventions. Uh,
excellent. Exactly. So this is the exact answer that I was looking for. You would talk to the tech transfer office, but typically, based on the subject area, you would be assigned a certain representative at the tech transfer office. There are multiple staff employees, of course, at the tech transfer office, and depending on your area of research, depending on your department or school, they have a different way of categorizing and assigning these inventions to a specific person. Based on my experience, once you are uh, linked to a certain person at the tech transfer office, you always work with them year after year. So you get to know them, they get to know you. I have, for example, regular meetings with someone at the case tech transfer office. We meet, it's almost like a recurring meeting. We meet regularly to go over the IP portfolio, questions related to existing patent applications or upcoming patent applications. So it becomes like a regular scheduled meetings with you for you. And you have a regular working relationship with someone at the tech transfer office going forward if you have an IP portfolio. And in my opinion, every investigator who is working on something translatable, commercializable, you need to have your own patent portfolio, they call it, or IP portfolio. Just like you have a list of publications in your CV or NIH BioSketch, you should also have, and it's becoming more and more common, you should have a list of patents and patent applications, patents at different stages, you know, review, revision, you get office actions, you know, just like how you publish papers, you submit the patent, you get feedback, you revise and resubmit. It's like a standard publication process. Next question, let's go to the next one. Have you ever filed an invention disclosure? Okay, the results are coming in. Okay, thank you all for responding to these poll questions. Okay, most people have not submitted an invention disclosure, which is okay. So we already discussed what it is and how it is and how you can submit the invention disclosure. And what I would like to encourage everyone on this call to, at least if you think that you have some type of invention that you might be a part of, you might be one of the co-inventors, or you might be the main inventor, I encourage you to reach out to your corresponding tech transfer office. If you are, for example, at UH, there is a tech transfer office at UH. If you are at Case, there is a separate one. And all these tech transfer offices have agreements in place in our partnering institutions. It doesn't really matter what institute you are affiliated with, as soon as you contact your corresponding tech transfer office, and even if you have co-inventors from other institutions, they will find a way to make it work uh, due to these agreements between the institutions. So it's a pretty easy process. Actually, in our case, Western Reserve University Invention Disclosure Form, when you list the inventors, you can check mark what institutions they are affiliated with. For example, CWRU, VA, UH. So you can just check who is affiliated with what, and you can also be affiliated with more than one, which is okay. It is tech transfer office's job to figure out those arrangements and the agreements in between. Because I'm telling this because I have heard from some people saying that, oh, this is very complex. We didn't know how to file the invention disclosure because we have multiple investigators, multiple inventors from multiple institutions. It was too complicated. We didn't do it, for example. Some people say that, but that should not be a barrier. Next question. Okay, so now this is a little bit more going beyond the invention disclosure. Are you an inventor on a patent or a patent application? Okay, excellent. So the purpose of the invention disclosure is to identify if there is a real invention, protectable IP, and if the tech transfer office, in coordination with the patent lawyers that the institution works with, if they think that there is a patentable material, then they file a provisional patent application, as I mentioned. And a year later, they need to provide more information, go for the full patent application. And then once the full patent application is made, it becomes a patent application, just as it is, just the name as it sounds, and then it goes through the patenting process, the review. It is reviewed by the USPTO. You might get back reviewer comments, just like we do when we publish a paper. It's called office action. Then you have time to address those comments. Sometimes they might say, oh, this claim is allowable, this claim is not allowable, add more details here, clarify this, clarify that, so you get that type of feedback. And once you go through that review and revision process, patent is published, and you officially own the rights to that invention for the next 20 years. Okay, so this is, again, I'm not a patent law expert, but this is just an overview of how the process works from an academic researcher point of view. As you can see here, most of our participants are not inventors or on patents or patent applications, but it is possible. So if you think that you have an invention, the first step is the invention disclosure. From that point on, you will become an inventor eventually on a patent. And what happens after you become an inventor on a patent, and what happens to those patents is a whole different story. But in brief terms, once you have a protected IP, now the university uh, can use that protection, like that patent protection, to market this idea or technology. Now you have something that you can commercialize. Without this, commercialization will almost certainly not happen. Nobody will take the risk to further develop this technology or invest on this technology to make it a product. Investors, companies who may license this patent, they want some kind of risk management. They can at least say, okay, if I develop this product, I have 20 years minus the time it takes to develop the product, during which I can commercially benefit from it and then make up the money that I invested in it. It's how the system, in general terms, work. But if you don't do the invention disclosure, you won't get the patent. Without the patent, none of these commercialization activities will happen. Let's go to the next question. Do we have another one, or was this the last one?
There's one left.
Okay, thank you. Are you interested in inventing and commercializing new ideas or technologies? Okay, excellent. Thanks. Okay, this is wonderful. Okay, most people said yes. Two people said no. Are they willing to say why they are not? It's okay if you are not interested. Is it because you are not working on developing or inventing new technologies, or?
Yeah, I'm not involved in that type of research.
Okay, thank
And
you for.
yeah, early on, I developed a scale and thought
Mhm.
about using commercialization, but then I decided that I really wanted to use that scale in my own research. So the legal team encouraged me not to file a
Yes,
patent.
yes, I understand. So there are alternatives to everything that I described. For example, if you don't disclose, if you keep it as a trade secret, if you keep it as a secret, then you would know how to make that new compound or new device or technology, or how to make that new measurement. And some companies do that. Some companies don't want to disclose and make it available to everyone, and they keep it as a trade secret. It's called trade secret, and that can be done. So if you don't want anyone else to use it, that is fine. But then it's also quite likely that if you don't commercialize it, then you won't have any financial benefit from it, or you can still choose to commercialize it by keeping your trade secrets. So that's another alternative to protecting IP. But in my experience, in especially in the medical fields, like in the in the biomedical sciences, I would say it's extremely difficult to operate by keeping trade secrets. For example, if I invent something new, let's say a new way of measuring something, and if I don't explain it to the medical community, biomedical community, to physicians, physician scientists, how it works, what it measures, why it measures, and if I just say, oh, I cannot tell you any of the details, it's a trade secret, people will not have confidence in the science or the technology behind it. So in the medical practice, in the biomedical sciences, in the clinical sciences, it's a common practice to disclose all the details so that you can gain the confidence and the trust of your peers. But at the same time, you also have protection that will help you, carry out the commercialization translation activities. So I would always encourage full disclosure and full description of the inventions, and then going through the invention disclosure and the patenting route. This is also consistent with the publications. Some people think that if you are applying for patents, you may not be able to publish, which is not correct. What we, for example, typically do is as soon as we put together a new publication for a peer-reviewed journal, if we think that there is invention in that publication, we fill out an invention disclosure form, attach that publication, and immediately submit it to the tech transfer office. But the key is filing the invention disclosure before you make full public disclosure of the technology or the idea. So if the paper is openly published on a journal, in a journal, or if you give a public lecture, then the chances of protecting that IP goes down. It's not impossible, but it's not recommended. So you do the invention disclosure before any public disclosure through peer-reviewed journals or public lectures or seminars or conferences. And again, the best resource for you, if you think that you have an invention, is to immediately contact your tech transfer office and consult them with all these aspects. So they will give you the most accurate and most up-to-date and most institutional information that you need. Now, let me continue with the rest of my presentation. So I wanted to set the stage and also explain and bring across this message about the importance of the first step, that everything else that I'm going to talk about today follows that first step. So it's the critical first link in the translation and commercialization process. So let me briefly show you the pilot module that I'm co-leading at the CTSC. Why this topic is relevant to the pilot module is because through the pilot module activities, for example, if you receive an annual pilot award from the CTSC, it may be because you have an invention, it may be because you have a project that might lead to a potential invention or an invention disclosure. We now have in our submission process a brief description, a short section on the intellectual property for your project. We ask, for example, if you think that if you think you have an invention or a potential invention or intellectual property as part of your project, or we just want you to briefly think about it. It's not a requirement, it's not a must, so you don't have to have patents or apply for patents as part of a CTSC project, but we just want you to check and see if you might have it. If you have it, have you contacted your tech transfer office? So this is kind of a brief reminder on it, or an explanation as part of the process. So we also would like to help you through the pilot module If you think that again, if you need help or support in translation commercialization activities, CTSC has excellent resources in many different ways. But this is something that we want to raise the awareness about. So if you think that you might have translation commercialization potential, interest, or intellectual property, or a potential invention, please contact us. You can contact me or Anna, who is our manager for the pilot program, or anyone from the CTSC. They will make sure that you get to the right person or to the tech transfer office if you need that connection. So we also monitor the pilot project progress activities, and I will explain why the things that we talked about is important. And you see the other goals and the other activities of the pilot core. So one of the things that we are working on actively doing is actually I see Lishan here in this call, incorporating pilot module evaluation um, parameters. And one of the things that we have added recently is inventions disclosed or patent applications filed. So this is now becoming more and more important for our CTSC as well as other CTSCs, and also for NIH and NCATS, which is the big sponsor for the CTSC centers. And going forward in the academic research context, we will see more and more of these concepts. So there will be more discussions on the invention disclosures, patents. Universities are expected to be a little bit more active in protecting the IP that they generate and licensing that IP to either startup companies, small companies, or larger companies. So the expectation is for us investigators to be a little bit more aware of these new, potentially new concepts for some of us. All the other all the other evaluation metrics in terms of career advancement, publications, and so on are all there. I just wanted to highlight that we now have a new parameters that we are starting to look at in this domain. So one of the things that we also do, so this was a collaboration with our CTSC colleagues and members. We like success stories. We are always constantly asked to provide success stories for the newsletters, or for NCAT also now has a case study or a success failure study group. So if you are aware of any success stories, if you want to be a story in one of these contexts, you can also reach out to us, and we would be happy to work with you on that. So if you are wondering what a success story is or a case story is, you can actually find this publication that we published a few years ago. This was a retrospective case study of a successful translation project, which is the Gazelle HP variant project that I briefly talked about. This project received very early on, the first funding that the project received was a CTSC Pilot Award, which led to other translation research awards internally at CASE and also externally through NIH and other organizations, as well as State of Ohio. So that led to the commercial success. You can, if you're interested, take a look at this publication. And also, more important, if you are aware of such similar stories around you, please let us know. I would like to just briefly give you an idea about what this whole technology is about and why it is important. The motivation for this technology was recognizing the unmet need in the screening of a very important disease, sickle cell disease, in the global context. Uh, Before we did the invention of a new technology, it was important to understand the unmet need and the awareness around that unmet need, which are also important. As part of the educational uh, educational programs on translation, commercialization, entrepreneurship, always the first starting point is recognizing an unmet need, and hopefully and ideally an awareness around that unmet need. So unmet need triggers the solution. Sometimes we see investigators finding, like developing a technology, for example, and trying to find a problem to solve with that technology. Normally, it should be the other way around. So you identify the problem first and then create the solution for that problem. So here the unmet need was sickle cell disease is a significant global burden in the world, but specifically in India, which was not always recognized as a significant place for this disease. We recognize that India ranks number two in the world for sickle cell disease, and they were getting ready to announce a, a sickle cell elimination program. So there were discussions internally in the country that they wanted to create a national program for sickle cell disease screening. So that's what I mean when I say that there is a need for screening technologies and also awareness for this need. So they want to develop programs to screen. The governments recognize the importance for screening, and it is important to have that. If there is a need and if nobody wants to do anything about it, then that's also not good, because even if you develop the technology or the solution, nobody will use it because nobody wants to do anything about it. Awareness and urgency to address that need is quite important. If you can actually match these two, it becomes really helpful in the future. So the problem with um, the lack of diagnostics in this context was the existing centralized lab-based testing, which is what we have right now in the Western world, or actually in many parts of the world. When we need a lab test, like a blood test, you go to a central lab, they draw blood sample from you, they send it to a central lab. It takes a few days, sometimes a few weeks to get the results back, especially if you live in remote areas. And this is a big problem. So you have to go to a central facility for this to happen. But uh, in places like Africa, India, and actually in many parts of the United States as well, this accessibility is not really easy. It's not Many people don't live close to a center like UH or Rainbow Children's Hospital here. If you have to travel a far distance, and if your financials and if your work life doesn't allow that, then those diagnostics become inaccessible for you. And most of the people who need the diagnostic in this context live in remote areas, so they don't have access. They don't easily get to a center to get tested. And if they do that, they will lose wages and travel costs, and it will also delay treatment. To access the diagnostics is a big problem in such settings. And also the numbers are, tremendously high. Sickle cell disease and anemia and the general list of hemoglobin disorders affect billions of people in the world. So potentially billions of people need to be screened. But starting with a large screening program in India that aims to screen millions of people is a good starting point. And actually, you can see that India is red and dark red, like dark like red in both maps. Anemia and hemoglobin disorders are both common in India, and the difference in India is they want to do something about it. So our invention in this case was based on the standard electrophoresis technology. The standard method for hemoglobin testing currently in the lab is a method known as electrophoresis, which essentially applies electrical field to separate proteins based on their charge. The challenge in the current lab test is you need an expert technician to run the test and interpret the results and figure out which band is which, and look at the locations of these bands and do some kind of interpretation. So it requires technical skills and also know-how to analyze these results. And also the technology itself is not that easily operatable in all different contexts. So what we wanted to do was, the first thing that we wanted to do was automate and simplify this electrophoresis process. So we went from a large setup to a chip-based, a single-use chip-based platform that can separate the hemoglobins for each sample automatically and visually with the help of illumination and camera. We can detect the movement of these bands, locations of these bands, and relative intensities of these bands to make an automated diagnostic decision. So this essentially made the test much more accessible, also the interpretation automated. So we created AI-based algorithms and we defined all the possible band combinations to give the most common hemoglobin disorder diagnostic results. So from early on with the initial funding that we received from the CTSC to product development, which happened through a company, Hemex Health, a new company, and to the product release, it took about, I would say, 10 years, which is typical for medical devices. This timeline can expand up to 20 years for drugs and pharmaceuticals. Initially, translation research funding opportunities such as CTSC, Coulter, Ohio Tort Frontier were quite critical to develop the first prototypes for initial analytical and clinical validation. And then we leveraged NHLBI, SPR, STTR funding mechanisms, all the possible ones, phase one, phase 2B, and other versions. And even to this date, NHLBI SPR funding opportunities helped us go through the manufacturing, clinical validation, and regulatory processes. So these are all costly processes. For example, one of the latest phase 2B award, also known as the Bridge Award from NHLBI, helped us prepare the FDA regulatory submission package. So that was one of the aims. So in a translational commercialization research project, you can have an aim to put together an FDA application. So just like we do specific aims in R01s to study certain things, one aim in such a project can be to prepare the FDA application package and submit it to the FDA. So that would be the deliverable milestone or the outcome of that aim, for example. So we did all those things, and the product was released a few years ago outside US. Now we are seeking US FDA approval, as I mentioned. I emphasized the importance of having an awareness or an unmet need. So India was the perfect collaboration in this commercialization process because we wanted to address a large market, large need, and India was the perfect place for that because they wanted to start a large government screening program. And not only that, we could also produce these technologies in India at a much lower cost, at high qualities, and also, serve the India market as well as countries surrounding India, for example, Africa and Asia, Middle East, and other countries easily from that location. So we started a, a subsidiary in India, Himex DX, and also contracted manufacturing with some local manufacturing companies for both design and manufacturing. So currently, manufacturing and most of the marketing is done from India for this technology. So these are the available locations and sites. So these numbers are a little bit old. We have more than, I think, 4,000 locations, for more than 4 million tests delivered to date, and operating over 40 countries with US approval, as I said, hopefully happening soon. So recently, in one of the newsletters of CTSC, there was a short, small highlight about Himex Health and the FDA Breakthrough Device designation. So we would like to see more of these in the CTSC newsletters and also in our university newsletters. If you have such stories that you would like to share with us, Laura, I think it was on this call. You can share it with Laura or others, Laura here, and others at the CTSC. And these type of success stories are also important to uh, uh, share our message and share our products of our research with the general public. NIH, NHLBI, government, policymakers, and general public would like to see more and more of these activities, research making a real world impact through, saving lives, creating diagnostics, new treatments. And these type of success stories also help us, uh, you know, take that message across the broader audience. So a few resources available at CTSE and at the university. If you are a PhD student or a postdoc, I highly recommend you to look at the Case Western Reserve University and CTSE Translational Fellows Program or the TFP program. So this program provides you a 1 year long 20% protected time for these type of activities. So we have many different activities in the fall and the spring semester that teaches you all the basics and the fundamentals, both basic and more advanced topics on how to push inventions and discoveries from lab to the market, from regulatory science to IP, customer discovery, market assessment, all the key topics. I don't have time to list you all of them, but it's extremely useful. There's also a publication from our center on this TFP program. You can actually download this paper and read it if you want to learn more about this program. And it is one of the very few such programs in the country that can help you in your translational journey. This is for PhD students and postdoc level researchers. So this is from a recent I-Corps finale. So I-Corps is a program that they complete in the fall semester for this fellowship. So if you're a faculty member, Case Western Reserve University Wheel Institute for Entrepreneurship has the Wheel Faculty Fellowship Program. So this is also a 1 year program. It provides you lots of resources, including funding, some small level of funding for your translation, commercialization, market research, or prototyping activities. Typically, 6 to 8 faculty are selected for this program. You can apply, and it is open to any faculty member across our university. You can actually find more information about this in this link. You can see the existing faculty fellows. They are from different schools and different departments, as you can see, quite diverse in terms of the backgrounds and experiences and the schools that they represent. So I also would like to share with you a recent resource that I had developed through the American Society of Hematology. So this is an American Society of Hematology resource, but it is actually open to anyone. Anyone can go and become a member of ASH Ignite and have access to excellent resources, which I'm going to briefly summarize here. But I also would like to highlight that our societies and professional organizations and professional societies are now doing more and more of these activities. You may be in hematology, oncology, you may be in that field, or you might be in the cancer or other fields. I'm sure that your professional society has some new resources, or they might be working on developing new resources for translational and commercialization entrepreneurship activities. You can either become a member of ASH Ignite, I will show you the link in a few minutes, or you can look at your own society and ask them if they have such resources available. So at societal level, you can access the resources, or at the institutional level through CTSC and other mechanisms, you can access such resources. So the idea here is, if you are a PI or a researcher, and if you want to do some translational entrepreneurship activities, you are not alone. There are others, and there are resources available. So, for example, this ASH Ignite, which will probably set a good example for other societies, is it's open to anyone. There are some specific resources for hem-onc physicians, but it is actually open to any medical innovator. It provides business and financial information. These are all vetted resources. So there are articles, YouTube videos, webinars, short lectures. These are all reviewed internally by a committee. They're all high quality vetted resources that you can read and learn more about, and also provides networking opportunities. So all the ASH members, for example, society members who are interested in these topics, they can find each other and work each other. If you are looking for a CEO, you might actually go to the ASH Ignite and say that I have this new invention and I need a new CEO who is interested, or I need an investor, or I need someone who is an expert in the regulatory process, for example. So there are many resources, as I said, as I mentioned earlier, at this resource, and you can also use it for networking. For example, before you go to an annual event, this tool helps you make those connections. Before you go to the annual meeting, you can arrange meetings, you can reach out to people, schedule a lunch or dinner or coffee to discuss, any new ideas. So there's a video here that shows all the resources available. I'm showing you this again, hoping that more societies, and maybe your society is also doing this, you can take a look. These are quite helpful. So this is the link for the ASH Ignite, and you can scan this barcode or go to the link and become a member. It's free for everyone. And this is my last slide, some awards and acknowledgements that made all the work possible. And you can see the CTSC acknowledgement here as well. And I would like to thank McKinsey and CTSC for giving me the opportunity to talk about these things today. And we have a few more minutes if you have any questions, or if you want to reach out to me, you can see my email address here. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. We do have 2 minutes, so if anyone has a question, they can go ahead and either put it in the chat or unmute. And then while we're waiting to see if people are typing, I will just share a last slide here.
Okay, should I stop sharing?
It's okay if you can, or you can leave it. I can just share over
Okay.
the top. That shouldn't be a problem. Okay. So these are just a few QR codes. So the one on the left is to look at the schedule for all the upcoming sessions of Science Cafe. So the one we have next month on May 14th will focus on nutrition and chronic disease. The middle QR code is to become a member of the CTSC if you are not already, so that you can stay up to date with all of our events. And then the last QR code on the right is to provide feedback for this session, and if you have any ideas of topics or speakers that you'd like to see in a future Science Cafe. I'm not seeing anything in the chat. And we are just about time. So thank you so much, Dr. Gurkan. That was a great
Thank you.
session, and everyone enjoy.